Bonjour, this is Jasmine. Thank you so much for stopping to smell the roses on Rue Madame. For those of you who are new to the neighborhood, I am a writer, a storyteller, and a community builder. I write about culture, politics, parenthood, and my life here in France. Recently, I've become an author of a children's book. The title is Joelle Confronts the Weather with What's in the Cupboard, and it's now available. It's about a little boy who has a wild imagination and is very generous in trying to help his father. So check that out. Tell me what you think about it. I'd love to hear your feedback on the book. And for those who are interested in creative writing, I am a full time writer now, and this passion project is growing. I'm so excited for that. The interview with Jasmine Ellis is next week. Exciting to talk about classism, sexism, and the recent song that got a lot of backlash online. So I can't wait to talk to her. Head over to Patreon and become a resident of Rue Madame and get the exclusive content, the bonus content, and the full videos. So check that out. This video, we are discussing the role of the church in the Trump era. Help me welcome my panel who is really interested in the topic and have a lot to say. Stay tuned and enjoy.
I'm here.
Well, I'm
Mhm.
glad you were able to make it.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite.
Yeah. Okay, so everybody knows the topic. The topic is the role of the church in the Trump era. And I wanted to get everybody's viewpoint on what do you think the church's role is, if they have a role at all? I'm assuming everybody is Christian, or what do you think, Steve?
Yeah, so I don't know what's already been said. I kind of
Oh,
wanted
we were
to.
just starting. We were just.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I think what is the role of the church in, because I said what for social justice, equality, racism. I guess the question is, how do we identify then, right? So whose issue is it? Is it the church's issue? Is it us as like black people's issue? Like if we identify as us Christian, if we want to run it all together, then yeah, there's a role for the church in social justice and equality and freedom and all those things, right? But I
Right.
guess um, as an institution, the church isn't really our institution. It was something that was kind of given to us, and we've been kind of modified it and taken it on and identified with it. And now it's become the place where most of us gather. It's a place where we actually come together as a community in a way that we don't in any other arena or any other avenue.
Right.
So
I was thinking,
it,
what other places do we gather and fellowship like the church? Can you think of
yeah,
anything? Like,
no,
like,
there actually really isn't any. There really isn't any, unfortunately. And when I was in college, part of my first job out of college was I was running a faith-based nutrition program where basically I would go to churches and teach them about healthy food and cooking, and I was like, well, why does this program even exist? Why does this even have to be a venue or avenue or a population that I have to be, particularly targeting? And they said, well, if you tell us another place where Black people or gather, that we can be doing this kind of education and communicating this information, yeah, please let us know. We'd be happy to investigate. And as we look through different communities and areas in which Black people intersect, that was the place where we were most commonly where we congregate. And so that is a place and a source of information and truth and things to be disseminated. So I guess in this era, it is important for the church being that place where we all gather to be a platform from which truth is spoken. And a lot of times we have to speak, truth to power. And as we know, especially in our country, power isn't evenly distributed among everyone. So it puts us in a position to have to speak to those things. So I guess we have to recognize, that this is our platform. This is the place where we're going to communicate this information, right? Outside of like entertainment, right? So it's like we gather along different entertainment lines. Everybody's gonna go to a concert. People follow a particular artist. You know what I mean? But I think this is as far as truth and what we think is true information, we always associate truth and true information to come from the church. So that puts us
Right.
in a you know, in a particularly responsible place for getting true communication out. So I think it has a big role. It always has been through the 50s, 60s, 70s. This is where people organized. This is where all the movements, like all the marches and boycotts and rallies,
Right, because I
we
was
always
thinking of
gathered in.
Martin Luther King Jr. He was a reverend.
Yeah.
um, what do you think, Candace? I mean, like, what do you think the role is as far as like the church? Should they be like on the front lines of protest, or should they be like a refuge for people that are protesting? Like, what do you think the role of church is for like social justice?
Well, there are quite a few verses, scriptures that call for widows, for orphans, for those who are destitute. So I feel like that whenever there is an injustice, that is the church's role. The church's role is to speak out against it and to have like bring a voice to it, regardless if we're talking about Black church or a white church. The church is supposed to be the voice, and I just feel like that it is a injustice when the church is silent.
Do you think the church has been silent?
I think that a large part of the church has been silent. I think that, like you guys are saying, for Black people, the church has also served as like our organizing arena. Like, not only do we go there for spiritual like fellowship, but we also, like, that's the meeting place even today where politicians, they come and they ask of, like, they come to the church, and the church is the community.
Right,
They're
right.
not going to like I mean, we don't really have like social halls like in the suburbs. I have noticed that I see a lot of like Masonic temples and like lodges and stuff like that. But when you go into the city, you don't really see that type of stuff. So wherever people are gathering to talk about whatever, it generally is being hosted at a church.
Right.
Um,
I always thought it was odd when politicians would come to church. I just felt like it was like out of context. And when I was
mhm.
younger and I would see like this random person coming in, like, oh yeah, vote on this day. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you know how you have this separation of church and state,
Yes.
quote unquote. But when it intersects, it's kind of like a shock. But because outside of that one day, I don't remember ever talking about or discussing political issues or social justice issues aside from this person that comes, I don't know, once a year.
And that is an injustice. I feel like that is a big problem because we only talk about these issues when somebody else, an outsider or whatever, makes it okay. They have to bring up the subject of, I'm running for an office. I want to convince you guys that I am aware of whatever is going on in the community, and whatever you guys' issues are, I want to appear as if I'm approachable, and
Right.
that I can like handle or take care of all those things that you guys have been talking about together in your community,
Right.
about like gun violence and whatever.
Yeah,
But
I
I
think.
think that's a problem.
Well, I guess let's put ourselves in the politician's seat, right? Obviously, I can't go and knock on doors and talk to every Black person,
Right.
right? And I can't talk to every person in the community and specifically get their individual desires of their government. So, the question is, what should the church have a political position? Should we be pushing for a specific political agenda? It seems like you said yes, because you said that it would be important for, if there's injustice, for us to speak out against it and talk about it. So one way to speak out against injustice is to request of your government political action around a specific event.
Right.
So because the church is this mass gathering place, then that means that, and if this is our opportunity for our congressmen to come in and speak to us, that's actually a really good opportunity, because when else we're going to have access to our congressmen, to our politicians, the people that are our representatives? They're actually coming to us and saying, look, your issues, what you're saying, what you feel and what you want is important to me, to the point where I'm going to make a special trip to your congregation and to make myself present and known. At
Yeah,
that
but I think
time,
that
I think that's when we should be ready with what we want to have. Like, what do
Right.
we want to have happen? Like,
Right.
these are the, for us, for me, to me, the role in the church is to, because being a member of a church is also a political decision. It's a political decision, and it's also a social decision. It's also a religious decision. It's all these things all in one. It's an educational decision. It's a like how your children. It's a cultural decision. So many. We join a particular organization for a lot of different reasons. We choose this church in this neighborhood with this pastor and this message, as opposed to this church. They all speak to us for different reasons. So if we've all congregated as a collective in a specific place at a specific time for a reason, that we have interests, we have things that we want to see, we want to be able to gather here.
Yeah.
We have interest, and
I
I
mean,
think that it's important for us to gather those interests into one and say, okay, what do we believe? What do we want from our government? How can our government support Christianity? How can our government support our interests that we have, because we do have them, right? And
but
so
does
when
the
we
government really have an interest in Christianity, or are they using this as a catch-all? Like, you don't have to go, like you said, door to door knocking. You can just go to this one place and gain the trust of these people because you're in a church setting, as opposed to on the street with a loudspeaker, or however you appear more trustworthy. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have an interest in what these people or this community has an interest in.
Also, when these people come, I never feel like there's any type of interaction. You know what I mean? I feel like
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but I feel like if you weren't prepared for that, if you weren't prepared for that congressman or congresswoman to come, then the
Mhm.
leaders haven't done their job.
right.
That's my thing. That's what I think.
It is a question of leadership, because
It's
if
a
we're
question of
just
leadership, because yeah, if you come and you're thrown off guard, because I remember one day I was in church and Debbie Stabenow, Michigan's representative, U.S. representative, came to church one day, and she's come to our church several times. She's been very much in support of the Black Christian community. She's been very support of that. But what does support mean? Like, for my interests, so what does she even? How would she know what I want to have happen? How does she know what I want for my government? And she doesn't know until she comes to the church and gets the answer. So yeah, she's coming and talking to the congregation and saying, hey, everybody, I'm here to support you. I'm here to make sure that your interests are taken all the way up to Washington, to make sure your interests are heard and expressed and acted upon on a national, federal level, right? So I would
So
hope that at the same
I'm sorry.
time, I would
So
hope that
what you're
behind
saying
the
is
scenes,
she's going to set the extra step to also engage with the congregation after she's made her appeal.
no, yeah, well, so the pastor brought her in and she said, hey, I want to come talk to your community. That means that the pastor and Debbie Stabenow have had a conversation behind closed doors, off
Mm-hmm.
cameras, and he said, look, these are the 10 things we need to have
Mm-hmm.
happen. We want justice for this. We want this to happen. Do we have your support in pushing these issues forward? When she says, oh yeah, absolutely, I'm going to make sure I sign this petition. These are the things I have in place. The pastor says, okay, great. Now that we
Mm-hmm.
have alignment on you making sure you're covering our issues and understanding what we want, now you can come. I'm going to introduce you to my congregation to say, hey, look, this is this candidate. She is supporting us. She's supporting our interests, and she's taking our interests forward. So now let's get behind her. Let's vote for her, because I have talked to her and I know what we want, and I've made sure that our interests are being heard in a larger context. If all those things are happening, then yeah, it makes sense for her to come to church. It makes sense for her to come and make her presence known, because we need to understand who is the person that is going to support us and has our best interests at heart in government, because we can't all be politicians. We have representation, and
Right.
they're saying
True.
that this candidate is it.
Have
Is
you
the
heard?
church service an appropriate like place for that to happen? Like while we're coming
Absolutely.
in with the expectation of, you know, we're doing praise and worship, and then we go into like the sermon, normal, like the way that it goes.
Right.
Is that appropriate to disrupt that with a political appeal?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. So it sounds like you're asking when in the service is the best time for her to come in. So that's
Hmm.
like when in the service is least disruptive
I
for
mean,
this
in the
person to come
service
in.
at all, like if like in the service at all, is that appropriate time to talk about things? Because
Right.
even
Right.
like
It is a
churches have like town hall meetings, or I don't know like what other people call it. We have town hall meetings where we discuss like the finances of the church, like what the vision is for the church and stuff, and that never happens in a service. Even though that is an important issue and that's something important that we discuss, it always is after service. Is that appropriate? Like, is that, I mean, what I'm
No, no.
asking is like,
Appropriateness is like appropriateness is always a subjective thing, right? Like when is
yeah,
the best time? Like if I'm coming to a congregation and I'm coming from Washington D.C. and I want to talk to your congregation, I want to come when everybody's there. I want to come when
yeah,
everybody is present. So of course I'm going to
yeah,
come when most people are present. And what will make for good planning is if ahead of time they say, hey, from 12:10 to 12:15, Debbie Stabenow, this particular candidate is going to be here. They're going to be
mm-hmm,
talking about this, and this is what we're going to cover in this time, and then you go back to your thing. So it's not like it doesn't break from any flow. It's not out of order. It's all expected. You set proper expectations. You understand what's happening. Everybody's clear on what the agenda is, how it goes
yeah,
forward, and then it leaves. But you can't. I don't want to say. I wouldn't. To me, I wouldn't want a person to reserve their time and their energy for a town hall meeting that could be less attended and potentially less effective than it would be if we say, hey, look, this is what we need to have happen. We need to have the biggest impact. We have to have the biggest exposure rate to those people. I would want most people to be there. I would want everyone to be there.
Recently, like attending church or just listening to the news or whatever, have you heard any significant church or Christian outcry as far as social justice? Like, for example, when I listened to the church service online,
Uh-huh.
and they attempt to talk about social justice, it's very vague and it's very like, oh, God loves you, keep praying. And it never really discusses anything like that's,
concrete.
you know what I mean? Like nothing concrete. It's just like, oh, just keep your head up. And, it's just like,
Yeah, because those,
for it to
I
be a
just
black
feel
church,
like,
it just surprises me that they can't even say Black lives are important. And you know what I mean? Like, just
yeah,
simple.
I mean, I think that there are like people cherry pick what social justice issues are going to be accepted in the church. So like widely, abortion, that is a big, very big attention thing. LGBT, that is a big like attention thing. Like there are things that the church focuses on that I don't think are as pertinent to talk about. And I'm not talking about those issues. I'm just saying in general, there are things that the church addresses that I don't think are as pertinent
It's our
to
priority.
social justice. Right.
They're not a
Um,
priority.
yeah. So when I say that, what I mean is like if you are like your message every single Sunday is you're talking about people on drugs. Your message you're talking about people, having children out of wedlock, or
Right.
list the type of music that you listen to, like
Alcohol,
those are very like
too big.
yeah, like those types of things.
Yeah.
I feel like those are easy things to talk about when you don't want to ruffle any feathers, when you don't want to make any members of your congregation feel uncomfortable or not come back, or you don't want to lose their tithes or monetary commitments because you have run them away, because you have called them to put what they believe into action. When we're talking about what I think the role of the church is, and how Stephen, you said that the church, like everybody can't be a politician. I agree with that. However, I feel like where the church has dropped the ball is that you can teach from a pastor's standpoint what injustice is and how you address it. If you are in an all-white congregation, for example,
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely.
when you're sending your kids on mission trips and you are advertising in your congregation that you can be supporting all these hungry kids in all these other countries, but you refuse to address the different disparities in the communities close to you.
Right, in your own neighborhood, in your own backyard.
Exactly. That is something that you can do. As a church, that is something that you can literally mobilize. You can take your people, you can go connect with churches in like inner city communities and have them
Yeah,
say set up like a mentorship
you could take
program where
political
you teach
action.
them
Yeah.
yeah, like you
But
like
have you
teach them
seen
like mentorship
any,
or
has your
finances
church
or
really been vocal about it? That's my question. Have you seen
as
any
mine.
vocal,
Yeah.
concrete, legit, you know what I mean? Like, have you seen
Yeah,
that in the past
my
like
church
months?
my church has, like, they were on the ground, they were down on Woodward and Highland Park. They arranged a rally. It was a rally with
A rally for what?
mostly with, I'm sorry.
What kind of rally?
It was a rally for Black lives and against police
For Black Lives
violence.
Matter?
Not for Black Lives Matter, but for I mean, it wasn't a Black Lives Matter rally, so that's why I just didn't want to say it was for Black Lives Matter. It was a
So
rally for Black Lives.
why wasn't it a Black Lives Matter rally? Black Lives Matter rally. Why wasn't it?
It wasn't arranged by a Black Lives Matter organization.
Right, but why
So
wasn't it
that's
in
just,
support of the Black Lives Matter movement, which is against police brutality?
well, I'm not saying that there were people who had Black Lives Matter and everything, but that's not the way that it was advertised or marketed. It wasn't this is a Black Lives Matter march. This is
And I'm
I can't
asking you,
remember.
why wasn't it?
What do you
Do
mean
you
why
think?
wasn't it?
Why don't you? Okay, so Black Lives Matter is a movement that's specifically around like the notion and the argument that Black lives do matter and that Black
Right.
lives are disproportionately victims of police brutality. So the
Right.
purpose of Black Lives Matter is to reduce instances of police brutality in the Black community. Your church
Right.
organized a rally relatively recently, right? In
Yeah.
connection with recent racial events and that have been
Yeah.
put forward by Black. So why would it not be associated with the Black Lives Matter movement? Why wouldn't it be?
I just was trying to be clear that it was a rally organized by church leaders and it wasn't a Black Lives Matter organization. I mean,
Right.
it wasn't a rally organized by the Black Lives Matter
But it
organization.
did
That's
support
just what
Black
I
Lives
mean.
Matter, but it just
I'm so
wasn't.
sorry.
It supports Black Lives Matter, but it wasn't organized by Black Lives Matter.
Right. It was.
Oh, okay. I
As
see.
far as the role of church and things like that, my next question was, what do you think the connection is between the church and white supremacy and
Woo!
the complicity of.
Woo!
We going down a rabbit hole here, Jasmine. I mean, I don't know how quickly you want to have this kind of conversation.
Hey, this is Jasmine. Hopefully, you are enjoying the conversation. You're getting a lot out of it. Head over to patreon.com to see the full video. There'll be 2 extra guests on the panel to discuss further the role of the church in the Trump era and make a pledge so you can get full access. See you over there. Bye.